Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of the Rogers Radio Podcast. We have another great guest today. We have Jeremy Satterfield here. Many of you know him. He's very involved in the community and is currently TechSpark Manager for Southern Virginia. I can't wait to hear all of the great things. You see him everywhere. We all know Microsoft. We all know that they're a huge company in our area and they're expanding and always growing, and Jeremy has been growing with them. So welcome.
Good morning. Welcome. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I'm excited to have you here because, Microsoft is a huge deal in our community. We're so lucky to have Microsoft, and I have just enjoyed, following your journey along the way, and, you're everywhere and really promoting it well, and I can't wait to hear more about it. So thank you again for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, so I like to start off, this podcast is to get to know local leaders, and I want to know kind of the backstory. Where, how'd you get to where you are today, and kind of what's your background?
Awesome. So my background is a little unusual. So
okay.
I'm born and raised right here in Halifax County.
Awesome.
Vowed to never come back.
Uh-huh.
Upon graduating high school way back when in June of 1998.
Okay.
I went a whopping 50 miles down the road to Longwood College. And
Yeah.
I say college because at that point it was college. I graduated as last graduating class as Longwood College. And ultimately wound up coming back home because my wife.
Yeah.
Who is now my wife of 20 years, almost 20 years, about 6
Congratulations.
weeks shy of that. Yep. Said she was coming back home. And I said, well.
So she's from here too?
She's from here too.
Okay.
So I chased you for 4 years to Longwood, and we survived 4 years of Longwood. I feel like kind of pot invested now.
Yeah.
So I'm coming back home with you. So she actually got me my first job.
Awesome.
I was at spring break with my fraternity brothers in Florida. She was at an education hiring event on Longwood's campus, and they found out that Mecklenburg County needed a marketing teacher.
Okay.
And I was a marketing manager. So lo and behold, she got me an opportunity to interview with Mecklenburg County, and I wound up getting hired on. So I was the first senior in my graduating class of marketing that was able to land a job.
That is awesome.
It was really neat. My advisor was a lot more jazzed than I was because that's how he had started. Out in Greeley, Colorado. And I remember thinking, it's like, why are you making such a big deal of this? I'm going to be a marketing teacher. You got people that ultimately wound up going to work for P&P and Johnson & Johnson. And I'm like, why are you highlighting me? But I was the first one to pull the trigger. So spent 3 years teaching high school, Mecklenburg County Public Schools down in Bluestone. Absolutely fabulous experience. Learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about time management, and thoroughly enjoyed the teaching occupation.
Yeah.
It kind of run its course after about 3 years.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get a little bit closer to home. We started our family, had our first child, and it was taking a lot out of me to drive up there, and I was coaching 2, sometimes 3 sports a year.
Yep.
I was away from home a lot. So I said, let me try to work on getting back closer to home. So a position came up here locally with Halifax Regional Hospital. Came on board with them. Spent 6 years with them. Absolutely loved it. Was given very unique opportunities to grow in leadership.
Yeah.
And it's because I think they knew me and I was from here. So they gave me a little leeway. And I learned a lot from it. Spent 6 years with them. Position opened up with Mid-Atlantic Broadband, which I tell folks all the time is a hidden gem of South Boston. They have been here forever. They're more internationally known than they are known locally here in Halifax County. Tad Darso and that team are just amazing beyond words. 6 years with them, had absolutely zero interest in going anywhere. My goal was I was going to retire with Mid-Atlantic Broadband. Lo and behold, we are on a staff retreat in Virginia Beach. We were looking at the new landing station that had just come on board, comes off of out of the Atlantic Ocean. We were down there for a staff retreat. playing golf with some gentlemen from our board and our staff. And I checked my phone, as I'm always doing.
Yeah.
And I got an email from Tad, who's in the group behind me, that says, "Hey, you need to look at this job posting."
Huh.
So I immediately think, what have I done to upset him that he wants me out of here?
Mind going crazy in
absolutely.
that moment.
I'm thinking of every bad scenario you could possibly think of. So we get done playing golf. Neither one of us mention it. We go back, we get ready, we go to dinner. We sat right beside each other for dinner for 3+ hours.
Oh my gosh.
We go to the rooftop bar immediately after that. Not one word is said. The next morning, I'm literally getting food on my plate before our staff meeting.
Yeah.
And he asked me, he's like, "Hey, did you get that email?" And immediately I went, "Yeah, what the world is that about, man?"
Finally, you say something.
And he said, "No, did you look at the job description?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I glanced at it." He's like, "It's the same stuff that you do for us, but you would be doing it for Microsoft." And I was like, "Okay." So honestly, I applied just to appease Tad.
Right.
That was in May-ish of 2017. And didn't hear a word from Microsoft until probably mid-September.
Wow.
And got a phone call and said, "Hey, are you still interested?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I am. I just assumed that you guys had already filled the position."
Yeah.
It had been 5 months.
Right.
And they said, "No, we actually weren't supposed to put that listing out." They actually mistakenly listed all 5 of the opportunities instead of going from east to west or west to east, however they were going to go. And I said, "Yeah, I'm still interested." And literally 3 weeks later, I got a job offer from Microsoft.
That is awesome.
It was it's been quite the stumbling block at times and quite the on-ramp sometimes. But it's been fun.
Yeah. And it's so amazing to hear that story, because we have many people that come on here and they say they never wanted to come back to Halifax County, and then they are here and they are leaders in the community, and all of the opportunities opened up here. I can attest to that for myself. I was one of those that said they were never coming back. And it's just amazing to me at the opportunities that are available in this community that people don't even realize. Absolutely. And the room for growth. The opportunities that you have had just by hearing that story are amazing. That there are so many people in cities that, would love those opportunities.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So I get the Mel Saunders reaches out to me every year to go talk to the leadership class. And you'd be surprised. That's the number one question that I always ask this group of students every year is, how many of you guys want to come back? And the first year that I asked, I guess it was 4 years ago, 80% of those kids wanted to come back.
Awesome.
So I was like, okay, now we're starting somewhere.
Yeah.
And I could say that trend has dipped a little bit. It's gone back up to that threshold. But that's one of the things that I always tell those group of kids is, if you have aspirations of being a leader, which I really did not.
Right.
But if you have aspirations of being a leader, what better place to do it than in your hometown? Right. If you complain about this or you complain about that, then, try to work to be part of the problem of the solution.
Sure.
So that's one of the things that I always talk about. Like, I've served on just about every board of directors you can between here and Brunswick.
Yeah.
And it's not because, you're smarter than anybody else. Right. It's just the opportunities are there because you go to work, you do your job, people recognize it, and you get those opportunities. And I tell folks, I was like, if you want to live in Richmond and Raleigh or a larger city, you're never going to have that type of exposure. You're never going to get that experience.
It's so true.
And so you start to see some wheels turning when you're telling young students that. So, but you're absolutely right. Had I not been in Halifax County and kind of known already, I would have never been asked to serve on these different board of directors. Yeah. So, and I've grown immensely from serving in those capacities, without question.
And, you've always, had... You said that you didn't ever think you wanted to be in a leadership position, but you have found yourself in a lot of leadership positions. So, what does that mean to you? And do you think that you have certain characteristics that have led you to those positions?
I think about it, and and I'm not lying when I tell you I never wanted to be in that position. I kind of want to be head down, do what I'm supposed to do, get out of the purview. Yeah. But back in college, I lived on an all-guy hall my freshman year. So there were 53 of us that lived on there. We were tight as ticks. Yeah. All awesome guys from every walk of life you could ever imagine. Well, we wound up, thinking about the fraternal side of things. Mm-hmm. And we would talk to this fraternity or this fraternity, and for no rhyme or reason, we just didn't feel like we exactly fit. So we made the decision that we were going to start our own fraternity. Well, I don't know if anybody or yourself knows that, but that is a very arduous process.
Very much, yeah.
So we started down that road. Finally, the Dean of Students, Tim Pearson at the time, who's still with Longwood, came to me finally. He said, Jeremy, he said, I got to tell you something. He said, I applaud what you're doing. He said, but you're never going to see it. You're never going to see the fruits of your labor before you graduate and are out of here. And I said, well, that stinks.
Yeah.
And that hurts a little bit. He said, let me introduce you to a couple of folks. It's like, okay. So he took me to a fraternity, of which I wound up becoming a member of, and said, I want you to talk to this guy. I talked to that guy and was just floored. He said all the right things.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of myself in him.
Yeah.
So we wound up having a connection, and I wound up pledging this fraternity. And literally the first semester after being initiated, I was voted president. And I think it was at that point to where I thought, I looked back and I was like, well, somebody sees something in me that maybe I don't see in myself. So I think that's where the fire kind of got lit for serving.
Yeah. And, how would you describe your leadership style? I mean, you coach sports, you are involved in so many things, and, you're growing where you are. How would you describe your leadership style? And has it changed over the years?
It most certainly has. I will say that initially I was one of the initial leaders that got thrust into that position because I wanted it my way or the highway.
Right.
Which you don't get very far. The old adage is saying if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others.
Yep.
And I was a fast guy. So I wanted it done my way, and if it wasn't exactly right, we lost time, and I felt bad about that. So, as my leadership roles and opportunities have grown, so have I, and I've learned I've always been very hands off.
Okay.
I've had fabulous leaders that I've worked for. Chris Lumpson being one of them,
Yep.
Tad Daraso being another one, Donna Strange being one
Yep.
at the hospital. I have mimicked all of their styles.
Yes.
They are forthright,
Yes.
honest, transparent, to the utmost. And what they do is they just told me what their expectations were.
Yep.
And just me, I didn't want to disappoint. And I actually wanted to go a wee bit above what their offering was. So I have basically tried to provide every tool that you could possibly have to be successful, and let you pave your own course. If you want to go a different way, but the outcome and the success is still the same, by all means, do it your way. Pave your own street.
Yeah.
Nothing says that you have to be a leader and do it exactly like somebody else did it.
Right.
So I've mimicked it a little bit after that, but I've been so blessed to be able to work for folks like Chris Lumpson, Donna Strange, Tad Daraso, and now my current director, Mike Egan at Microsoft, is just amazing, and especially when you can direct a team that is scattered across the United States.
That's a talent. You have to be very talented to do that.
Every time I talk to him, I was like, I don't know how you do what you do, but you're fabulous at it.
Yeah.
And he's in the right role at Microsoft.
Yeah. So, you talk to a lot of leadership groups, it sounds like, and, you go around and you promote Microsoft and TechSpark and all of the programs. What advice do you have for someone that's in their career and doesn't quite know what they want to do or where they want to go, or someone that's just starting their career?
So those are always good points. And, we were all there at some point.
Yeah.
And we all do it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But, the opportunity, any and every opportunity that you get to expand, whether it be a stretch role or a stretch assignment, do something that's outside of your purview. Anything that can take you a little bit stretched.
That's really good.
I was never big on speaking, to be quite honest with you. Coming out of college, going directly into a classroom, of which I was 22 years old. Some of the kids I was teaching were 21.
Yeah.
You learn that you have to be able to talk to these folks.
Yeah.
And students especially, because they'll see right through you. I never will forget my advisor that I told you was super proud of me, which he probably shouldn't have been. He told me he was a chain-smoking guy from Greeley, Colorado.
Yeah.
He used to chew gum in class like it was his job. I don't know how his jaws weren't just destroyed. But he told me, he said, Jeremy, he said, when you come in, he said, be the meanest son of a bitch you ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I get there, very first day, and I'm standing in front of my very first class, and I'm like, I can't do it. Because it's not me. They're going to see right through me, and I'm going to lose these kids before I ever had the opportunity to have it. So, that was, and he was awesome. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. And he's the reason I got into marketing, to be completely honest with you. And I remember thinking, that was great advice, and it may have worked, but, it wasn't for me. So I chose not to do it. But, anytime that you can take yourself just a little bit out of your comfort zone, at least attempt it. You're only going to learn from it. It's going to make you better in some capacity. Maybe not immediately, but, 6 months down the road, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, you're going to recall, you know what, I probably grew from that because of something that I did a number of months ago. And people are just scared. I mean, we're scared of change. Everybody's scared of change.
Yes.
So, just be willing to put yourself out there, go the extra mile, and you're going to get opportunities, I can assure you.
You are speaking to me. Everything you're saying is so great and so true. You have to be yourself, and we've all been in situations where we look up to people, and it's like, man, how are they like that? How are they like that? And you have to look at yourself and say, I have to be me.
Absolutely.
And I'm never going to be like them. I can take certain things and, tactics that they use, but I'm never going to be them. I have to be myself. And which you're speaking to me today, Jeremy. So you have a lot of people looking up to you. You have players on your teams that look up to you. You're a role model to them. Your children, you're a role model to. And then everyone you work with. How does that feel for you?
It can be a little weighted at times, but at the same time, you realize, I'm doing something right, and I have a purpose, and my purpose is not Microsoft,
right?
My purpose at the end of the day is, because I get asked a lot, with TechSpark, they're like, what do you consider it to be a success? And I was like, when my kids and every kid in Halifax County has the same opportunities as other kids in urban settings. That's when I'll consider this to be a success. Now, whether or not they choose to go that route, that's fine. But they can't leave Halifax County and say, you know what, I didn't have that opportunity. So that's that weighs on me pretty heavily. And you have to be a pretty big mover and a shaker to be able to provide some of those. But, that's why you partner with all the groups that we have. I mean, Halifax County is, we might be limited in the resources that we have because we're small and we're rural. But at the same time, the resources that we do have are immensely powerful.
Yes.
And we can move mountains collectively. And I think we're doing a much better job here over the last 6-7 years of actually thinking together and moving together.
I agree.
As opposed to shuffle here, shuffle right, shuffle left, shuffle back. I think it's become a much more choreographed dance.
I agree with that.
But it takes a while to get there. We stumble sometimes. We're
of course, everywhere does.
But if we have the ability to have some folks in positions that are accessible, to whoever it may be, because I still look at myself as a lifetime learner. There's always something that I'm going to need to learn, whether it be specifically for work, for professional development, or just my personal development. There are folks out there that I emulate in a lot of ways. And I'm sure I fail immensely at it. Yeah. But at least it was worth the trial and error.
Yeah.
But being a mentor is something that's pretty neat. It can be a little heavy on you at times too. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I just hope we're providing opportunities to all of these different folks.
So you've mentioned a lot of people, during our talk here. Who would you say has been your biggest mentor along the way?
I would have to say Tad Daraso. Well, CEO of Mid-Atlantic Broadband. Yeah. Just because, and that's not a knock on anybody else, but I worked longer with him and I've worked more closely with him. When I say close, I mean like literally our office was, 2 doors apart. And just to be able to watch him, we kid each other all the time when we say, and I make no bones about it when I talk to that leadership class. I'm like, I had these opportunities, not because I'm the smartest guy in the room. I'm far, far from it. Yeah. But I have the great perception of closing my mouth and opening my ears. Yeah. It's amazing what you'll learn and what folks want you to learn when you're listening intently. sometimes they're not even looking for a response. It's just a nod of the head.
I love that.
Just so that you know that you're understanding what's being stated to you. And Tad Darso is probably the best I've ever had a chance to witness. We kid each other. We're not the smartest guys in the room, although he probably is. I know I'm not.
Very humble.
Yeah, he probably is. But just the way that he is able to interact. When you're talking to different folks, because sometimes he's out on the field, and you're talking to potential residents, and sometimes he's talking to the United Nations.
Wow.
And to be able to watch him change his dynamics and be able to relate, whether it's here, home in Halifax County, or at the United Nations, is just it's quite impressive.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what is one lesson that you have learned that you have taken throughout your journey here?
Oh man!
And if you're a lifelong learner, you've learned you've learned a lot of lessons. But what is one that stands out to you?
You have. I think one of the biggest thing is sometimes we tend to doubt ourselves a lot more than others do. Going back to the story of the opportunity of Microsoft presenting itself, it didn't present itself. It was presented to me by another individual of whom I worked for that, I was caught off guard when he presented me with that. A lot of times we are our biggest hangups.
Oh,
we are our
100%.
biggest barriers.
Yes.
Because we don't entrust the fact that we have what it takes to go after what we want.
Yeah.
And you think about that and you're like, nah, that can't be, because I think a lot. Well, we do, but when there are times when it comes to others around us, they think a lot more of us than we do of ourselves. So we've got to get out of the way. And I'm not saying to be cocky, because there's a big difference between being cocky and being confident.
Yeah.
But if you are confident enough in your abilities, you can have just about anything done. And we're creatures of habit.
Yes.
We get scared of change.
Yes.
If you can just take the handcuffs off yourself and go after whatever it is that you want, I don't know if there's a person that would fail. I really honestly don't. Honestly, we fail because we didn't go full. We did not go hard at it because we were scared. Yeah. And we were scared of that rejection area. That rejection, I tell the kids that I coach all the time, we're never losing. We're either winning or we're learning. So
I love that.
Take losing out of the equation.
Yeah.
Because they're 13 years old, 12 and 13 years old. So I don't want them to equate, well, we lost this weekend. Nope, we didn't lose, we learned.
Yeah.
So if you're really willing to invest the time and energy, go after it hard. Don't kind of go after it nonchalantly. If I'm gonna fail, if I'm gonna lose, if I'm gonna be in that learning category, it's gonna be me going 100%. It's not going to be me, tiptoeing through the daisies.
Yes. You have been dropping so many great mottos to live by during this talk, and I want to know if you have one that you live by every day, or do you just live by all of these great ones?
It depends on the day. Don't get me wrong. I have bad days. I have good days. I have awesome days. Now my bad days are pretty limited. I will say that I have an amazing opportunity. I live in an amazing place that's my hometown that I grew up in. So I have great days for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a singular one.
Yeah. You have dropped so many good ones during this. And, I can see why you're such a great coach because, if you're not winning, you're learning. Mm-hmm. If you're not winning, you're learning. That's perfect. Yep. I love it. So what are your current goals?
So my current goals are I'm almost 5 years in with Microsoft. I'm a couple of weeks shy of being 5 years in, which feels like some days it feels like an eternity. Some days it feels like it just happened yesterday. Yeah. But we've got some pretty immense goals with Microsoft that we want to still get accomplished. And when I say with Microsoft, I mean all the partnerships that we have throughout the region. It's taken a long time to get some of them in place. And some of them are still not in place yet. They're still conversation pieces. But I think we still got a lot to do there. Mm-hmm. TechSpark is, we're 5 years old. Mm-hmm. We've basically been green-lighted for another 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when you're really going to start to see some rubber hit the road. the SOVA Innovation Hub, which is my signature project located in downtown South Boston. We're open, but we're still not open yet, just because of the pandemic that we were shuttered in for a number of years. But I think we're going to start seeing the SOVA Innovation Hub be the bustling spot of downtown South Boston.
Yeah.
And that's what I cannot wait for.
So tell us about that. Tell us about TechSpark and the SOVA Innovation Hub, because, many people think it's open, and you're saying that it hadn't even started. So tell us about that.
So TechSpark is a civic program that was started by the president of Microsoft. I keep wanting to say after the last presidential election. That's not true. It was 2 presidential elections ago, when there was a reflection point for Microsoft, when they kind of scratched their head and said, there are a lot of people in America that are saying, we don't feel like we're being heard. We don't feel like we're being understood. Maybe Microsoft needs to look at ourselves as well. Microsoft, huge corporation, worldwide. When I started in 2017, 135,000 employees. Petrified to death, by the way.
That's a lot.
Of leaving Mid-Atlantic Broadband, with 22, I think, employees at the time, going to 135,000 employees.
Wow.
But realistically, it works. So, but seeing that, and like I said, so they started this civic program that was aimed at job creation and economic growth in rural communities. Luckily, Southern Virginia was one of the 5 regions, initial regions that were selected. So we do have a data center here, but that's not why we were selected. There were other parameters that they used for the selection process, of which I've never been privy to. So I don't know them.
But that's good to know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we were chosen. We have had the distinct honor to work with basically everybody. So we work in the K-12 space a lot. We work in the higher education space a lot. We work with nonprofits a lot. We work with a lot of the small enterprises, which Microsoft has so many offerings that it's hard to capture all of those. I mean, I'm still learning 5 years in. Like I have, a unique thought in my head. And then I take it to Microsoft, they're like, yeah, we do that. And it's right here. I'm like, well, but being a remote employee, there's no Bible per se for you to look and say, yep, that exists, or no, that does not.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fact finding that we do in and of ourselves. But TechSpark has been very, it was a blank slate. Yeah. So we got to create it, which sometimes is very daunting.
Of course.
When you think about it.
Takes you back to wanting to start that fraternity.
Yeah, absolutely it does. There are no road signs, there are no paths.
Yeah.
You get to forge your own. Yeah. Which if somebody like me, I like structure. Yeah. So to be able to say, Jeremy, choose what you want to do. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. So that took a little, it was a little scary there for a little while. But once you get used to it and you figure out, the different ways in which you can connect and some things that you can do. That's what it's all about. And the greatest thing, we get accolades. When I say we, I mean Microsoft. Sure. A lot of different groups around here say, well, thank you, Microsoft. That's not the case. Right. We could not do what we do without being able to get the partners at the table. So all the partners that we've had through, the Mid-Atlantic Broadbands, the K-12 divisions, the Higher Ed Center, SVCC, Danville Community College, the nonprofit, you name them. I mean, just because, we had an idea or maybe some funding for it, that's not moving the mountain. Right. You got to have all these other players at the table that are willing to do the dirty work. Yes. So I look at myself as like a convener. I'm serious. I convene folks and get people around the table to have some real, candid conversations. And sometimes those conversations are awkward because I may be stepping on their toes a little bit. Or infringing upon some things that you have done or looking to do.
Has to happen.
For change, absolutely.
Yes.
So that's the biggest thing for us. So each TechSpark region and each TechSpark manager was charged with identifying a signature project. And I never will forget, I was on my very first day, new employee orientation, had gone through the whole rigmarole of, how you getting set up to get paid, choosing your insurance, this, that, and the other. And I mean, you talk about force fed with the fire hose. Right. So that was from 7 a.m. until noon. Then we broke and you went to different places. Well, so some folks, you got to remember, some of these are computer engineers. Right. They got done there. They went to a couple other meetings. They flew back. Well, were broken out because we were going to be full remote employees.
Yep.
We had to meet with all of these different departments.
Wow.
So I literally spent the next 3.5 days in 60 to 90 minute segments.
Wow.
And then moving all across the campus out in Redmond. But on Monday evening at 6 o'clock, of which I started at 7 a.m.,
yeah.
I got a chance to sit down with the president of Microsoft.
Awesome.
On my very first day.
Awesome.
And I remember him, he was at the end of the hall, and Dennis, who was the TechSpark manager in Wyoming, and I are walking towards him. And he was like, all right, one of y'all speak. And I was like, well, why do you want us to speak? He was like, I was just trying to figure out who's from Southern Virginia. Never mind, I got you.
Oh.
So I just kind of chuckled. And we go in and sit down in his office. And we sat down and we chatted for 45 minutes.
That's awesome.
He took the time to get to know us and understand where we're coming from. And he basically said, this is what I'm looking for. And these are my expectations. And I can't wait to see you guys' signature project. And I remember turning to look at Dennis, and I look at my director, Mike Egan, and I go, I don't even think the ink is dry on my contract yet. What in the world are you talking about? So there were some heavy expectations.
Yeah, for sure.
But thank God for Mid-Atlantic Broadband.
Yeah.
They had already partnered with Microsoft in a myriad of ways already before, long before TechSpark was even thought of. And it was just a natural partnership for us to build on. So that's how the SOVA Innovation Hub came about. It was going to be a complete NBC build.
Yep.
So Microsoft did not commit one penny to that building, even though everybody calls it the Microsoft building.
Right.
It's not. And if Tad is in earshot,
yes.
I make sure I correct everybody.
Yeah.
But NBC built that building, so the second floor is all theirs. Downstairs you have a community space, training space, you have the Microsoft Experience Center, and then you also have the flexible and co-working space along with private offices. Now, I was lucky enough to score an office
Yay!
there, which, they're pretty full.
Yeah.
And then we also have the flexible and co-working space in which we have folks. I mean, some days you just have a couple of folks that are in there. Some days you have 8, 9, 10 folks that are in there working every day.
How amazing.
It's, I never in a million years thought that's something that would have landed in Southern Virginia.
Yeah.
But it has been very well received. And, we're starting to see, I alluded to the fact that we're not really open yet.
Right.
With COVID and folks still being a little touch and go sometimes, we're getting to be open. But at the same time, just so we don't lose a lot of the luster of it,
sure.
We're waiting for members of the senior leadership team from Microsoft. I have been promised that they're coming here to cut the ribbon on that facility.
How cool.
It was supposed to happen last October. We had a spike in COVID.
Sure.
So we had to postpone that, and now we're looking for another date to match up with their schedules. So we are open.
Yes.
We're just not busting at the seams yet.
Right.
I'm trying to hold back the floodgates just a little bit. But I've already entertained, I want to say it's 250 people that have come through that facility just to check it out.
That is awesome.
It is. It's really neat.
Well, congratulations on everything that you have done and accomplished, and we're so lucky to have the SOVA Innovation Hub in this area, and you as part of that. And I want to know, we end every podcast at my favorite question. If you could have dinner with one living person outside of your family, who would it be?
Ooh, I told you I was going to be thinking about this the entire time, and I have not given it 1 ounce of thought since then. But one living person outside of my family.
Yes.
And I've had dinners with some pretty,
it sounds like it.
With some pretty neat folks already.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm going to go back just because I just watched his documentary a couple of weeks ago, and it's a sports guy.
Okay.
So a lot of folks are immediately going to hit end when they hear me say that. But Nolan Ryan.
Okay.
So grew up a huge Nolan Ryan fan. Really didn't know all of the backstory until Lane and I, my son, we caught his documentary last week, I think, actually, and. I just feel like he has so much knowledge that he could, and it's not necessarily only in the sports world, but a lot of it crosses barriers across. I think it'd have to be him right now. And that's only because I probably just watched
well, that's
He's the freshest. He's the freshest.
Yeah. I think that's a good one. And we can learn so much from athletes and coaches and everyone in that space. I'm fascinated by it. And I am really just excited to have gotten to know you better because you are doing so many great things for the community, and I just cannot wait to see where you grow to because you're so open to change and you are a lifelong learner, and I know you're going to go so far, and I can't wait to see what else Microsoft and all of the programs there brings to our area. We're very lucky to have you. So
well, I
thank
certainly
you.
appreciate it. Thank you very much for the invite.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Rogers Radio Podcast. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, and review, and continue listening. Talk to you next week.